Hello, Food Safety friends. Welcome to Food Safety Fridays edition 117. My name is Simon Timperley from the International Food Safety and Quality Network. I'm delighted to be back again with you after a little break. Today's topic is preventive maintenance, how it is related to food safety. Excellent topic. We've not covered this before, so really looking forward to it. Just to say, today's webinar is being recorded. We'll follow up to each and every one of you afterwards with the recording, a copy of the slide deck and the certificate of attendance. So if you miss a little bit, don't worry, because you can catch it all later. Food Safety Fridays is sponsored. I mention it every week, but now I've got a little video, some adverts. So they only last a couple of minutes, but these are the sponsors of Food Safety Fridays who help support this venture and bring this free education to you each week. And their logos are actually on the certificate of attendance, if you do notice. So I'm going to play this video and I'll be back in 2 minutes. Okay.
The world of food has changed a lot in the last 100 years. But one thing that doesn't change? Ensuring the quality and safe handling of food. No matter what changes are yet to come, we're proud to always be on our clients' side, shaping the future of food, today and tomorrow. AIB International, ever onward.
Wow. You're right, they're advertisements. They're the sponsors of Food Safety Fridays. We're moving up in the world, so rather than me just say the names of the sponsors, we now got some little videos. So anyway, back on with the show. Preventive maintenance, how it is related to food safety. Radoika Barisiki, she couldn't make it live, so yesterday evening, rather than let everyone down, we pre-recorded it. And so I'm going to play that right now. So are you ready? It lasts about 40 minutes. Feel free to chat in the sidebar, but now I'm going to play the presentation.
Welcome everybody, and today we're going to be talking about preventive maintenance and food safety. My name is Radoika Boritsky, and I work for a company here in the US called SCS Global Services. I have been working for the industry for over 18 years. And my specialization was specifically, or is specifically, in quality management systems and food safety management systems. So I had, while I worked in manufacturing, and now I do training and consulting, a lot of involvement with a lot of the programs that influenced the food safety management systems and quality management system. And one of the programs that actually had a direct impact in food safety and quality was the preventive maintenance program. And so today we're just going to relate the program to mainly food safety. But as I go in the presentation, I want you to also think about quality, because the food safety and quality aspects of food manufacturing a lot of the times go hand in hand. So what is the first thing that comes to mind when you are talking about or think about preventive maintenance? Well, typically what we think of is equipment. And that is a good thing, because a lot of the preventive maintenance program, or a lot of the effort in the preventive maintenance program, goes to maintain equipment in the operations. However, preventive maintenance also applies to buildings and grounds. Now, why does a food safety manufacturing facility need a preventive maintenance program? Well, there are several reasons for these. One of the main reasons would be to meet regulatory requirements. Now, I know we're in an international forum, but I am going to refer to US regulations just as an example. But I want you to actually put yourself in your country and think about what kind of regulations you may have to meet. Some of you may be meeting international code regulations or requirements, such as Codex. So in the US, for example, one of the regulatory requirements that we need to meet is current good manufacturing practices. These right now sit under 21 CFR 117.20, which is the new FSMA rule for preventive controls for human foods. And if we're talking about animal foods, there is a new regulation as well called preventive controls for animal foods, which sits under 21 CFR 507. So 21 CFR 117 says, well, we have to maintain plant and grounds. Okay, so as you notice in here, I have highlighted in red the key words for the regulatory requirement. These are roads, yards, and parking lots, as well to floor, walls, and ceilings. Another regulatory requirement under 21 CFR 117, again, this mirrors the animal preventive controls as well, that also has current good manufacturing practices. Again, it talks about general maintenance, building fixtures, and other physical facilities of the plant. And it also talks about pest control. So sometimes we don't think about how programs link together when it comes to quality management systems or food safety management systems. But if we don't maintain the building, the roads, the doors that lead to the building, we are going to have areas where either the pests are going to harbor or find, food or water, or we're going to have points of entrance for pests. So we have to be sure that the pests are excluded from the manufacturing or processing facility, and therefore a good preventive maintenance of the building would allow you to do these. You also may want to meet certification requirements, and the Global Food Safety Initiative is something that you may be familiar with at this point, or maybe you're just starting your career in the food business and you're not very aware of it. But if you hear of these Global Food Safety Initiative, they have 9 standards that have been approved, and each standard has their own requirement for preventive maintenance. And I am actually outlining in here some of the standards that are the most used in the U.S. So we have BRC, we have SQF element requirements, and also I have outlined in here global GAP requirements. And as you can see, I also have highlighted the different keywords that these maintenance programs require. They talk about equipment and building, plant and equipment and buildings. In the global GAP, that it's more related to the agricultural side of the food business. It talks about irrigation equipment, spray equipment. So as you can see, we need to cover not only equipment, but also buildings and grounds. Now, you also may have intrinsic factors that are related to your goals. And in order to meet them, you have to have a facility, or you need to have a facility that is running consistently and is continuously improving. And preventive maintenance plays a whole big role on this actual continuous improvement. So some of your intrinsic factors may be that you want to maintain or increase running efficiencies. You want to have compliance with company policies, for example, the glass policy, right? So if there's a breakage, then you need to fix that light. Or you may want to meet customer requirements that are actually requiring nowadays certification, such as GFSI and others that, again, contain these preventive maintenance program. Now, an effective maintenance program has several parts to it. The first thing that you have to have in any program, not only the preventive maintenance program, is management commitment. Then for an effective preventive maintenance program, you have to perform a risk assessment. And if you have worked in the food industry for quite a while, all you hear, not only nowadays, but before, especially here in the US, the regulations from FSMA is risk assessments. And risk assessments, you not only do them for building your food safety plans and your HACCP plans if you're HACCP regulated, but also for other areas such as OSHA regulations here in the US. You do a lot of risk assessments for job compliance and safety compliance, environmental compliance. So risk assessment should not be a foreign tool if you're working for the food industry. As I said, you use it a lot for food safety plans and HACCP plans. And in your risk assessment, you're going to ensure that you have an accurate inventory and that you actually have the equipment and parts necessary for the repairs or the maintenance of the equipment. You also need to do risk assessments, such as regular inspections of buildings and facilities. And then you have to have a preventive maintenance schedule, procedures on how to maintain equipment and how to repair buildings and fixtures. Training and employee skills are necessary, temporary repairs program, and accurate record keeping. So let's just talk a little bit of each of these elements as we go along in the presentation. So again, for an effective preventive maintenance program, a management commitment, it's the beginning. So management must provide the resources for an effective maintenance program execution. Financial and human resources are necessary to develop, implement, and sustain an effective preventive maintenance program. If management is not committed to provide the needed resources, then the preventive maintenance program will fail. So if you don't have the financial power to buy the right parts for the equipment or to fix that door that keeps leaving open because the self-closing mechanism is not working, then you're going to have a hard time meeting any regulations or requirements for either, again, the government or your customers. The next thing I want to talk about is equipment risk assessment and keeping an accurate inventory. So each equipment has its unique contribution to the production and will pose different kind of hazards based on type, usage, and maintenance. You may want to prioritize the equipment that has a direct impact on food safety and the ones that are more crucial for your food production. Equipment that is related to processes identified to control food safety hazards are highest in risk to impact food safety than those that are not designed for that purpose. In addition, equipment that has parts that are exposed to production lines, for example, scales, balances used to measure the portions of foods that go into a bag in a dry foods company, will have higher risk to contribute to physical hazards than those that are enclosed, like mixing tanks, filling equipment, etc. It is important that the equipment's name, the manufacturer name, the serial number, and the location of the processing area are noted in the inventory. This information also is needed for parts that are key for replacement during a planned or unplanned maintenance event. This information can be placed in the master schedule once it is completed. Buy the recommended parts by the manufacturer. And I emphasize that because in my own experience, it can be costly. I had a facility where the wrong seats for some valves at the pasteurizer were bought because they were cheaper. It turned out that the seats did not last the recommended preventive maintenance schedule to replace them. They broke, and the valves, which control the passage of the product through to holding tubes, will not open completely. So product that needed a longer treatment was getting the shorter treatment. This led to a major product withdrawal due to spoilage. The reason why it not resulted into a major food recall was because the temperature and times provided were way above the critical limit recommended in the validation study for the pathogens of concerns. So we were lucky, okay? We were lucky. So if you put yourself in this situation and you have product that is not being processed correctly, you can end up with product in the field that has pathogens of concern. So, however, before we reinitiated production for the product in question, we had to stop production for several months until the root cause was found. This resulted in a loss of several millions of dollars for the company. Okay, so, and a lot of extra work that was not needed if we had the correct valves, seats. As part of the effective maintenance program, building and facilities risk assessment and performing regular inspections. So when we think about preventive maintenance, the first things that as I said, that comes to mind is equipment. However, buildings, roads, grounds, and parking lots also need to be maintained, as they can also contribute to conditions that risk food safety. Regular inspections of the building and training of employees to report any areas of the building that need repair is important. Management commitment to provide financial support resources is also important, since most of the building and its surroundings repairs are not cheap, but are as important as the equipment that is processing the product. So planning your preventive maintenance. So most of the equipment will come with a manufacturer's recommendation on how to maintain it. So follow the recommendations provided by the manufacturer. The schedule is often broken down into daily, monthly, and annual categories. Collect this information the best you can and organize a master schedule that allows you to keep track of all these important maintenance dates at once. At the same time, consider how this maintenance will fit best into your operational schedule. Can you shut down production early one day to take care of all the maintenance at once? Or is it better to work on them on a rotation system? I have had work at manufacturing facilities that had planned PM days for each line, and any identified building or grounds maintenance needs were fit as they were reported or scheduled. I have worked in other manufacturing facilities that had a list of tasks that needed to be performed at a particular month, and the maintenance personnel will work with the production scheduler to fit the task on a weekly basis. It is important that the entire manufacturing facility team is involved in the communication loop for the equipment and building PMs needed. So scheduling is followed and high-risk equipment is not oversight. Again, management commitment is important for these tasks. Unexpected fails may happen that can deviate the schedule a little. However, emphasis must be made to reschedule the tasks needed, if possible, within the same week, so there is no risk of oversight at high-risk equipment. In addition, I should say that if you have a preventive maintenance to perform on an equipment that take care of a critical control point, for example, at your facility, these should not be postponed. They should be on time, on task. Again, high-risk equipment. If for any reason the schedule in the preventive maintenance do not match the production schedule, because things happen, you need to have a chain of command and communication that makes everybody that it's involved with the food safety system aware of the situation and make the right decisions in order to get the equipment maintained on the schedule, and assess risk if there is any food safety risk. So for an effective preventive maintenance program, you also have to have procedures, right? So people need to understand what tasks do they need to conduct while doing this preventive maintenance, okay? Training and employee skills are important. So you must start by writing what is the procedure that must be followed to provide preventive maintenance to the equipment, the building, and surroundings. In these procedures, you can include work order process, scheduling process, the identification of tasks to be performed internally or externally, contractors, who is responsible for the task and to manage the program, and how the program is verified to ensure that it's being followed as written. In addition, there should be a written procedure on tool management and how the equipment will be turned into production once the preventive maintenance or emergency repair is done. When performing preventive maintenance on buildings and surroundings, special care must be taken to separate the area or areas being maintained from the production area or areas to avoid any cross-contamination resulting from the PM activities. Each piece of equipment should have an SOP on how to be maintained or repaired as needed. Maintenance personnel must be competent to perform the tasks that are assigned. They must be trained in the general procedure and procedures that are relevant to the equipment they are assigned. In addition, equipment and building surroundings repairs should be assigned accordingly to the skills that the employee have. You cannot assign a repair that requires welding if the employee does not have or receive the proper training on welding for food manufacturing facilities, for example. You should not be assigning jobs that need the manufacturer's technical expertise to internal employees either. So it is important that personnel performing any maintenance task is competent on the task being performed. So also, you may have to have a temporary repair program. So sometimes equipment, get broken, but you can still work with them until the final repair is done. So preventive maintenance won't prevent everything from going wrong, really. Occasionally, you'll need to address small issues with your building or equipment with temporary or short-term fixes. You should have the equipment and personnel on staff to handle this smoothly, even with a maintenance schedule in place. Accurate record keeping. As with most responsibilities in the food industry, your equipment maintenance should be documented. If your facility is inspected for safety standards, you'll need this evidence on standby. And if something goes wrong with one of your equipment, your maintenance records may be able to help you pinpoint what went wrong and when. And traceability is always a priority in the food industry anyways. So when you're doing these GFSI related certifications and you're building your food safety management systems, or if you're just by company required doing a quality management system as well, record keeping is a key, not only for preventive maintenance, for all the programs that you are implementing. So what can go wrong with an effective preventive maintenance program? So how does really preventive maintenance programs can affect food safety? Well, one of the things that can go wrong is increasing risk of biological hazards, increased risk of chemical hazards, and increased risk of physical hazards. So when we talk about increased risk for biological hazards, we can talk about building vulnerability for threats, for example. So if you have building perimeters of fence wall disruptions, people can easily enter your facility without being noticed. Security system disruptions due to lack of maintenance can actually lead to people getting into your facility without even being noticed. Holes in the building, lack of self-closing man doors, and holes in the roof can also lead to people getting in your facility without being noticed. Accumulation of water outside the building will lead to pest harborage and food sources. So these will be related to poor drainage, holes on the ground, for example. And holes on the buildings will also be an easy access for pests and roof leaks. When we're talking about increase of risk for chemical hazards, we're talking about, for example, again, building vulnerability for threats. As I mentioned before, building perimeter can be broken, or security system can be broken if you have holes in the building, or the lack of self-closing man doors and holes in the roof can lead to people getting into your facilities without you even noticing, and possible threats. If you have a malfunctioning ventilation system, you can have chemical accumulation in the environment due to a lack of air circulation, and that can incidentally end on your food. You also can increase risk of physical hazards if you don't have good building repairs that may lead to preventing chipping of paint or pieces of the building falling into areas where ingredients or finished goods is being stored or being processed. Again, when we're talking about equipment, we are actually preventing the increased risk for biological hazards, chemical hazards, and physical hazards. So as an example for increasing risk for biological hazards, so if you have equipment that is essential to eliminate or reduce biological hazards to an acceptable level, and if they malfunction or not properly maintained or calibrated, then you're going to increase your risk of having your pathogens in the food. In terms of increasing the risk of chemical hazards, over-lubricating due to lack of standard operating procedures and trained skilled personnel can lead to lubricants that are non-food grade, or lubricants in general that should not be in the food, in the actual food. At the same time, for increasing the risk of physical hazards, we could have equipment parts that can detach at the end and end up in the food itself. So in my experience, when I have gone through different certification processes, or now that I'm consulting, I can see a lot of findings related to preventive maintenance programs. Actually, the preventive maintenance programs, and I should say allergen management programs and internal audit programs, are three key programs that typically have a lot of findings during certifications if you don't set them up correctly. They're very laborious. It requires not only a lot of resources from the financial and human standpoint, but it also requires a lot of maintenance itself. You have to have somebody overseeing the schedule, being sure that it's being met, that the tasks are being completed per the schedule. So again, it requires not only financial resources, but also human resources. So one of the common findings that I see is the lack of program processes and procedures. So if you don't have a written program, processes and procedures as required, it is difficult to guide people and hold people accountable really on how the preventive maintenance program should work, or how the equipment is going to be repaired, or how the building is going to be repaired. Programs are not being followed, so you have very good written programs, but you're not really following what you have written. Lack of a schedule, so again, you have a good written program, but there is not really a schedule for the repairs, so and it's not being followed. Preventive maintenance schedule is not being followed, so you have the schedule. Again, looks really nice on paper, but then when you're going to review the evidence of the program being followed and the work orders being completed, or the repairs being done as per the schedule, you find that it's not being done. Lack of records. So again, record keeping is a key, especially because if you are in a situation where you need to demonstrate that your preventive maintenance program is developed, implemented, and effective, you have to have objective evidence, and your records will be your objective evidence. So if you're missing your work orders, or if you say, well, the repair was done because we had the technician scheduled here for the equipment, but then, you know, the work order was not signed off, or there is no really work order for that particular equipment for that particular day based on the schedule, then you're going to have findings. Lack of personal training. Again, you know, if you're requiring specific tasks such as welding, your welding requirements for a piece of equipment that processes foods is not the same as the welding requirements that it's going to have for a piece of equipment that is used, I don't know, in construction, for example. A lack of personal skills, again, that relates to the welding example that I just gave, and lack of financial resources. So again, this program requires a lot of parts and for the equipment and repairs for the doors. So if you don't have a strong budget that counts for this important program, then you're going to be lacking on buying the necessary parts. You're going to be lacking on repairing that door that doesn't close because the self-closing mechanism is not working, or that roll-up door that is always open because the sensors are not working correctly, etc. So all of that, it's going to have a direct impact on your food safety in the long run. Now, let's just talk about a real example. Here in the US, we had in 2007 through 2009, really, a huge recall for peanut butter. And this was due to several reasons. And the actual company that this peanut butter was traced to was Peanut Corporation of America. So let's just give you a little bit of background, because if you don't live here in the US, you probably are not familiar with this. So Peanut Corporation of America was a peanut processing business with headquarters in Virginia and was founded in 1977 and initially run by the family going by the name Parnell. So the father of Stuart Parnell, Hud Parnell, was running this company with his two other sons. The company was sold in 1994 because the father was retiring. And Stuart Parnell, which was one of the sons, just remained as a consultant for the company. In 2000, control of Peanut Butter Corporations of America returned to Stuart Parnell, so the son, via a private sale. And so over the history of the subsequent years, PCA, or Peanut Corporation of America, came to operate processing facilities in Blakely, Georgia, and Saukville, Virginia, and Plainview, Texas, providing peanut and peanut butter products primarily to the institutional food markets, which so school, prisons, and nursing homes, and to food manufacturers for using cookies, snacks, ice cream, and dog treats, and to other low-end markets. Now, in January 2009, PCA announces a recall of some lots of peanut butter for potential salmonella contamination. The recall covered products produced from January 2007 to February 2009 at the Blakely, Georgia, and Plainview, Texas plants. Over 3,600 products are recalled, and over 600 people are known to have been sickened by salmonella linked to the PCA products. This was one of the major food recalls in the U.S. history, and really what pushed for the Food Safety Modernization Act to be enacted in 2011. Now let's just take a look at the failures. So they had lack of sanitary operations, lack of sanitation controls, lack of material controls, lack of building maintenance, lack of pest control, and lack of validation of peanut roasting process. So there was a lack of very essential, mostly GMP or good manufacturing practices related programs. And the only food safety hazard related program that they were lacking really directly, I would say, because all the prerequisite programs are foundation of your food safety plan and food safety program, was the actual validation of the peanut roasting process. So again, let's just take a closer look to these. So let's just take a look at the FDA 483. So for those that don't work in the US, a 483 is a formal observation that the FDA will provide to the facilities that they inspect when they see deviations from the regulations, okay? So there were a total of 10 observations at the Blakely, Georgia facility plant, of which 3 were maintenance issues, okay? So the first maintenance issue that they note on their 483 was water stains were observed running down from the unit cooling fans in the cooler. So in January 10, 2009, pallets of finished product were stored directly beneath this unit, okay? So you have lack of storage controls, but then the lack of maintenance of the coolant fans trigger that water leak, okay? The second one was the plant is not constructed in such manner to keep sealants in good repair. Specifically on January 10, 2009, there were open gaps observed as large as 1/2 inch to 2.5 feet at their air conditioning intakes located in the roofs of the firm. Water stains were also observed on the ceiling around the air conditioning intakes. Additionally, there were water stains and streaks located on the edges of the skylights where rainwater has been leaking into the firm. All of these openings were located in the production packaging room. Totes of finished roasted product and roasted peanut packaging line are located directly underneath these areas. Okay, and the third one that they noticed or noted was effective measures are now being taken to protect against the contamination of foods on the premises by pests. The bumper pads used for sealing the trailers against the bay doors were inadequate in that openings of 6 inches or more were observed along the sides of tops of the trailers. This trailer containing raw or roasted product in totes can be left backed up to the bay doors for 5 to 7 days, allowing these openings to exist. Okay? Now let's see what they saw at the Texas manufacturing facility, Plainview, Texas. So there were a total of 8 observations, of which 2 were related to maintenance. Failure to maintain buildings and physical facilities in repair sufficient to prevent food from becoming adulterated. Specifically, roof leaks where rain water was observed dripping into the plant's peanut processing areas were observed at the following locations. In the pre-clean area above the space between the gravity shaker and raw peanut tote dump station, leaking water was observed rolling down roof support in the east side of raw peanut tote dump station. Also at overhead hanging doorway leading from the pre-clean area to oven roasting area, the dripping water was landing on top side of the open, spooled overhead hanging door. Drip splatter could potentially contaminate the conveyor belt running near the ceiling from the pre-clean beans to oven. They also found the roof leaking in the hallway diagonal to the northeast of the doorway leading to oil roasting and granulation processing areas, and also leaks in working process area and pooling on the floor between organic and oil stock storage areas, approximately 20 feet of oil stock storage areas southwest door. They also found roof leaking in the work in progress areas and pooling of the floor below between storage areas identified as Q and R and L, and also roof leaking in work in process areas in other areas of the floor below between storage areas identified as Q and R, and then potential roof leak in northeast corner from most room of the kitchen or lab room puddle observed on the floor. They also observed paint chipping and peeling observed over dumping equipment located at northwest corner of the receiving pre-cleaning area. And they also observed that devices and fixtures are now designed and constructed to protect against recontamination of clean, sanitized hands, specifically the hot water food operated valve of the hand washing sink at the primary entrance to the food processing area was not shutting off after use. To shut off valve, the food pedal had to be jiggled or pulled upward. So as you can see, this lack of preventive maintenance, and there were not that many observations that they did. They did a total of 5 observations between the 2 plants. Obviously, there were other issues that were not related to preventive maintenance, but all this roof leaking and chipping of paint did have some contribution to the environmental conditions that led to have salmonella in the environment and end up in the product. Okay, so again, you have to remember that preventive maintenance is not an isolated program. It is tied to a lot of programs in your facilities. If you don't have a good preventive maintenance program, like in this case, you will have, issues for processing. You'll have issues for environmental contamination. You have organisms that should be controlling the environment now living in part of the environment because you're creating the conditions due to the lack of maintenance, not only of the equipment, but also the building. Now, prerequisite programs, including CGMPs, are the foundation of food safety. So keep that in mind. Every time I train people or I do consultation, I stress this because honestly, you can have a really good food safety plan or any program related to food safety. But if you don't have, or a HACCP plan, if you don't have a good foundation on your prerequisite programs, you are just increasing the risk for this food safety plan or HACCP plan to actually fail. Okay? If prerequisite programs are not well implemented, the food safety plan will lack of support and it will fail. Now, this is the end of our presentation. So thank you from me and SES Global Services. And if you do have any questions, you can email me at rbarysky@sesglobalservices.com. And if you have any questions about what kind of services we provide, you can go to sesglobalservices.com and you'll have different tabs that you can actually take a look at. And that's the end of the presentation.
Okay, very good. That was Radoika Barysky from SES Global. Unfortunately, she couldn't be here, so we had to record it, so we're not able to answer the questions. But what I do suggest is if you do have a question, that's why I posted the discussion forums. Go over there and just anything related to preventive maintenance, just create a new topic, and lots of members will help you provide their experience, share their ideas, and also sometimes templates, schedules, forms, or whatever. So do that. In the sidebar, you can see the next webinar, how to achieve a higher score on your GFSI audit. Wouldn't we all like to do that? So just click on that. That's May the 10th. It's free to attend. I'll just put the forum link in the sidebar. If you want to go over to there, I mean, on that poll that I did, 2/3 of you are already members. So a good 100 of you at least are not members. I'm sure you'll find it very useful. Right. Okay. The only thing to do now is to issue your certificate of attendance. Yeah, there it is in the sidebar. Your lovely certificate with the sponsors logos underneath. Print it and sign it, or open it in Microsoft Paint, an image editing program, and type it, and then you've got that, and you can put it in your CPD file and show it the next auditor that arrives, to show that you're enlightened and continually to learn about food safety and quality. Right. It's been a pleasure hosting this today. I'll see you on May the 10th for the next Food Safety Fridays webinar. Yeah, and maybe I'll see some of you on the discussion forum. All right. Happy Friday. Enjoy the rest of your day. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.